What would you do if your own mother told you, pay your brother's bills or don't bother showing up for Christmas? That's not a hypothetical for me. That's the text message that ended my relationship with my entire family for almost a year. And looking back, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Let me back up. My name's Mark. I'm 34. My younger brother, Devin, is 27. And for most of our adult lives, there's been one unspoken rule in our family. Mark fixes things. Mark has his life together, so Mark pays. I didn't sign up for that job. It just sort of happened, one small favor at a time, until it became an identity. The day everything cracked open started on a Sunday afternoon, driveway of my parents' house, early autumn. I pulled up in my Toyota, 12 years old, still running like a Swiss watch, fully paid off, and there it was, parked dead center like a museum exhibit. A brand new Ford Mustang GT, matte black, the kind of car that makes traffic stop just to stare. Devin was leaning against the hood like he was posing for a magazine cover, arms crossed. Sunglasses on, even though the sun was basically gone. Bro, look at this thing, he said before I even had the door shut. I looked. I'll admit it was gorgeous. I also knew exactly what it meant. How much? I asked. 47 grand. Fully loaded. Leather interior, the whole sound package. He said it the way other people announce they got a haircut. Casual, weightless. Devin was, at the time, working part-time at a phone repair kiosk in the mall. Had been between real careers for about 4 years. Lived in a one-bedroom apartment my parents helped cover. Where'd the money come from? I asked, even though I already knew. Grandpa's money. Finally doing something with it instead of just, letting it sit there. Grandpa had left both of us $90,000 when he passed 3 years earlier. I'd put mine toward my house down payment and locked the rest away in an index fund. Devin had apparently decided a Mustang was the wiser long-term investment. The whole thing? I asked. Most of it. Some went to a new gaming setup, some to a trip to Cancun. You gotta live a little, man. You gotta live a little. As if my mortgage and my 10-year-old Toyota were some kind of tragic sacrifice instead of a plan. I didn't say much else. It was Sunday dinner, my mother's sacred, untouchable institution, and I wasn't about to detonate it in the driveway. Dinner was normal on the surface. Roast chicken my dad parked in front of the TV, my mom asking about my job like she always did. Devin talked about horsepower and 0 to 60 times for 20 straight minutes. I nodded along and said nothing. After dinner, Devin cornered me on the back patio. So, insurance on this thing is kind of insane, he started, staring at his phone instead of me. Here we go. How insane? Like $310 a month. I did the math out loud. That's over $3.5 grand a year. On a sports car? Yeah, that tracks. Right, so could you maybe cover it? Just for a couple months. I'm about to get promoted to shift lead. It's basically locked in. Devin had been basically getting promoted to something for 3 straight years. None of those promotions had ever materialized. I'm not paying your car insurance. Dev, his face changed instantly, that flash of hurt turning to anger I'd seen 100 times before. Must be nice having money just sitting around, he muttered. I have money. Because I didn't blow 90 grand on a car and a vacation. Oh, here we go. Perfect, Mark, Mr. Responsible. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm saying choices have consequences. He walked back inside without another word. Typical. I said my goodbyes and drove home, already replaying the conversation, already bracing for what I knew was coming. It came faster than I expected. That night, around 8 p.m., one text from my mother lit up my screen. No, can we talk? No, how are you feeling? Just help him with the insurance or don't bother coming for the holidays. I read it 4 times. Sat with it. Something about seeing it in black and white, the transaction of it, hit different than hearing it out loud ever could, because this wasn't new. This was a pattern with a decade of receipts behind it. Rent covered when he was between jobs, roughly $6,000 over the years. A car accident payout after his last vehicle got totaled, $2,000 credit. Card bailouts at another $4,000 random. Loans that quietly evaporated, call it $2,500 more almost, to $15,000 of my money, funneled into a black hole labeled Devin, and not once had it changed anything. Not once had he learned to catch himself. And now my own mother was threatening to erase me from Thanksgiving over an insurance bill I never agreed to pay. I looked at her contact, at Devin's, at my dad's. A man who never called, never texted, who simply nodded along with whatever my mother decided, year after year. Something in me just stopped. Not a rage quit. Not a dramatic blow-up. Just a quiet, cold clarity. I opened each contact. Blocked my mother. Blocked my brother. Blocked my dad. Left the family group chat. One tap after another. No goodbye message. No manifesto. Just silence. I made tea. Watched half a documentary. Slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to 41 missed calls. Mom, 15. Devin, 18. Dad, 8. My phone had been buzzing on the nightstand since around 10 p.m. the night before, in waves, every 20 minutes, then every 10, then nonstop. The voicemails told a story all on their own. It started with anger. Mark, call me back right now. This is ridiculous. Then guilt. Your grandfather would be ashamed of you. Then panic. Devin might lose the car because of you. Then, finally, a hollow little olive branch. Fine, we're sorry. Just call us and help your brother. Sorry wasn't an apology. It was a transaction fee to get me back in line. Devin's texts, since I hadn't blocked him on messaging apps, kept sliding through. One had a screenshot of his insurance bill. $930 due in 5 days. Underneath, you're really gonna let me lose my car over this? Not, I made a mistake. Not, I'll figure it out. Just blame, delivered like a fact of nature. I got up, made coffee, went to work like nothing had happened. At lunch, more messages had piled in, this time from people who technically weren't blocked. My aunt, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, someone's boyfriend I'd met twice. The extended family grapevine had activated, and every single message followed the exact same script. Concern, followed by a not-so-subtle nudge to just talk to them. Fix it, make peace. Not one person asked if I was okay. Not one person asked what actually happened. Everyone simply assumed I was the problem. That's when it hit me. Really hit me. In this family, peacekeeper didn't mean peacemaker. It meant paycheck. And the moment I stopped functioning as an ATM, I became the villain of the story. 1 week in, my phone had gone from a war zone to a quiet hum. The calls slowed. The guilt-trip texts thinned out. Then, on day 7, an unknown number sent me a photo. The Mustang, hooked up to a tow truck. Caption, hope you're happy. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just the flat recognition of cause and effect finally catching up to somebody. He'd bought a car he couldn't afford, missed the payment, and reality did what it always does when nobody intervenes. Over the following weeks, one relative actually broke from the script. My Aunt Carol. She reached out from a different number just to say, quietly, I'm not calling to guilt you. I actually think you did the right thing. She became my only real window into the family for months, feeding me updates without ever asking me to come back. Through her, I learned Devin had moved back in with my parents. Jobless, contributing nothing, needing time to heal. I learned my mom was quietly struggling financially because of it, but still refused to ask him to get a job. I learned there was a full-blown intervention planned for me one Sunday. The whole extended family gathered to guilt me into submission. I didn't go. I went to a movie instead, alone, and it was one of the most peaceful afternoons I'd had in years. Carol called me the next day, half laughing, half exhausted. You should have seen it, she said. Your mom cried on cue. Devin gave this whole speech about how nobody in this family supports him. Your dad just sat there silent, staring at his plate like it owed him money. And nobody asked why I wasn't there? Oh, they asked. Your cousin Ryan actually said, what did Mark even do wrong? Your mom shut that down fast. That line stuck with me for days. What did Mark even do wrong? The honest answer was, I said no, once, after saying yes for a decade. And somehow that was treated like the unforgivable sin. Around that same time, the guilt campaign shifted tactics. It stopped being about the insurance bill and started being about tradition, a word my mother wielded like a crowbar. Emails from freshly created addresses. Messages relayed through cousins I hadn't spoken to since a wedding 4 years earlier. Each one dressed up as concern. Each one landing on the same demand. Come back, apologize, fix what isn't yours to fix. I stopped opening most of them. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. Every message I read cost me an evening of overthinking. Everyone I ignored gave me an evening of my life back. Thanksgiving came. My mother emailed me from an address I didn't recognize, clearly created just to slip past the block. The message hit every predictable note. Tradition, family, whatever our differences. Zero acknowledgement of the ultimatum that started all this. I didn't respond. I spent that Thanksgiving with takeout and football, and it was glorious. Then, in early December, something unexpected happened. My father called from a friend's phone. I should have said something when your mom gave you that ultimatum, he said. I let her push you out, and I've been ashamed of that ever since. It was the first real accountability I'd heard from anyone in that house in a decade. I sat there holding the phone, not sure how to respond to a version of my father I barely recognized. Why now? I asked him. Why not any of the other times? Because I watched your mother threaten to lose you over an insurance bill and I said nothing. And I've been sitting with that every single day since. I'm tired of choosing her comfort over your dignity. We started talking. Not often, not deep, just enough to keep a thread alive. He'd call from a coworker's phone, ask about my week, tell me small harmless things, the weather, a game he'd watched, nothing that required anything from me. He never asked me to come back. He never pushed. He just stayed present quietly, without conditions. which was, ironically, the first time in my life he'd ever shown up for me without an agenda attached. One call in particular stuck with me. He mentioned almost in passing that money was tight at the house. Devin wasn't contributing. My mother wouldn't push him to. "Are you telling me this so I'll feel guilty?" I asked bluntly. "No," he said. "I'm telling you so that when things get worse, and they will, you don't spend a single second wondering if you should have known. You know now. What you do with that is up to you." It was such a small sentence, but it did something enormous. It gave me permission to stop carrying weight that was never mine to carry. Christmas rolled in with another guilt-laced email from my mother. Family forgives, family moves forward, and another quiet decline from me. I spent the holiday by myself, and for the first time, alone didn't feel lonely. It felt like relief. Around the same time, Devin's girlfriend called me out of nowhere. She was leaving him, said he'd stopped trying entirely. No job search, no responsibility, just blame aimed in every direction except his own. She wanted to warn me before he inevitably tried to pin that breakup on me too. Sure enough, days later, a fresh batch of angry messages rolled in from numbers I didn't recognize, blaming me for his collapsing life. I didn't respond to any of it. I just kept living mine. By spring, cracks of change started showing. My dad, encouraged by our conversations, finally refused to co-sign a new car loan for Devin, the first boundary I'd ever seen him hold. Devin, with no other option, got a job at a warehouse. Ugly, humbling, exactly what he needed. He started paying a small amount of rent. Small steps. Not redemption, just slightly less freefall. In June, an email arrived from my mother that actually surprised me. No ultimatum this time. Just, "I was wrong to threaten you the way I did. I'm proud of you, and I should have said that more often. I'm sorry." It wasn't a perfect apology. She still defended some of her old thinking, but it was real. I let it sit for a couple of days before responding. We eventually met for coffee, just the two of us, somewhere neutral. She looked tired, older. She admitted out loud that she'd spent years protecting Devin from consequences instead of helping him grow. She said she was considering therapy, something she'd have scoffed at a year earlier. It wasn't a full repair. It was a start. By late summer, Devin moved into his own place with a roommate. Broke, humbled, but standing on his own 2 feet for the first time in his adult life. Months later, he even reached out himself on his own, no one pushing him. His message wasn't a perfect apology either. There was still some blame baked into it, but there was also something new. I get it now, a little. Why you said no. That single sentence held more growth than anything he'd said to me in 10 years. I wrote back 3 words. Proud of you, man. Short. Not a full reopening of the door. Just a crack of light through it. A year after that first blocked contact, I sat on my porch with coffee and thought about everything that unfolded. Devin lost a car, a relationship, and his pride, but gained a job, an apartment, and the beginning of something like independence. My mother lost her illusion of control, but gained a shred of self-awareness and the first real conversation we'd had in years. My dad found a spine he'd buried for decades, and me? I lost the version of family I thought I needed, the Sunday dinners, the performance of being helpful, and gained something better, actual peace. People will tell you cutting off family is selfish, that real family forgives no matter what, no questions asked. For a long time, I believed that too. I thought love meant absorbing whatever was thrown at me and calling it loyalty. I thought being the responsible one meant being endlessly available, endlessly flexible, endlessly the one who bent so nobody else had to. What I learned that year is that none of that was love. It was just role assignment. Somewhere along the way, without ever agreeing to it, I'd become the family's safety net. And safety nets don't get thanked. They just get used until they snap. The strange part is, nothing about setting that boundary felt dramatic in the moment. I didn't scream. I didn't write a manifesto. I didn't even really decide to do it. I just reached a point where the cost of staying available outweighed the cost of walking away, and my thumb moved before my brain finished arguing about it. Block, 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 leave group. What came after wasn't peace immediately. It was noise. 40-something missed calls, guilt dressed up as concern. An entire extended family convinced I was the villain of a story I hadn't even been allowed to tell my side of. But underneath all that noise, something was quietly recalibrating. For the first time in a decade, the crisis wasn't mine to manage. It belonged to the people who created it, and slowly, painfully, unevenly, things shifted. My brother didn't transform into a different person overnight. He's still stubborn, still a little bitter, still figuring out how to be an adult on a warehouse paycheck instead of an inheritance. But he's doing it. My mother didn't wake up one day fully self-aware. She still occasionally slips back into old habits, still occasionally acts like consequences are optional if you cry hard enough. But she's in therapy now and she apologized, and that's more growth than I ever expected to see from her. My father found a voice he'd buried for 30 years of keeping the peace, and I found out that the version of myself I liked best wasn't the one running around fixing everyone's fires. It was the quiet one, The one drinking coffee on his own porch, answerable to no one's emergency but his own life. Boundaries aren't the opposite of love. They're what makes love sustainable. I gave that family 10 years of rescues. They gave me one ultimatum. I chose myself instead, and in doing that, I found the one relationship I'd been neglecting the whole time, the one with me. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this: you're allowed to stop being the family fixer. You're allowed to let people face what they built. And you're allowed to choose your own peace, even if it cost you the family you thought you couldn't live without. Sometimes that's exactly the price of finally living for yourself.